Why Meghan?
Well, because she poses a challenge to the royal family, and she's a fascinating person. I mean, she's a person who started from nothing and has become a world global star, and that route to the top has never really been properly reported and examined and investigated.
When I was pregnant, and Harry says, oh, there was a little discussion before we got married. Well, something's wrong right there. But anyway.
Well, of course, that was brilliant of you to bring that clip up, because the body language just showed her discomfort as she dug deeper into her own hole. I mean, the truth is this, that there are two truths. The first truth is that the conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over by Meghan, is desperately in love, and already is talking about marriage.
The royal drama has just taken another explosive turn, and this time the stakes could be higher than ever. According to growing speculation online, Meghan Markle's legal team may have picked a fight with two people who are not easily intimidated: Lady Colin Campbell and investigative author Tom Bower.
Well, look, Radar Online, in fairness, they do quote you and say royal author Lady Colin Campbell recently challenged the conspiracy of silence and misinformation surrounding both Tom.
Both of them have spent decades around royal reporting and commentary. Lady Colin Campbell, often called Lady C, has written multiple books about the British royal family and is known for claiming she has deep connections and knowledge of palace history.
Is it possible the ghostwriter dislikes Harry? I know people who know him. I've heard interesting things about him. I know he's, as I have said previously, very into the 12-step program and the whole druggy-alky business. It is not the job of a ghostwriter to do anything but put the thoughts of the incompetent who requires a ghostwriter.
Tom Bower, meanwhile, is a veteran investigative journalist whose biographies of powerful figures have sparked major controversies in politics and media. And now the tension between the Sussex camp and their critics appears to be escalating. Commentators online say that if Prince Harry were ever to pursue a defamation lawsuit against critics like Lady C or Bower, the situation could become far more complicated than many people realize. That's because once a lawsuit is filed, the legal process doesn't just involve public statements.
They had the baby at home. We know that they deceived the public about the birth date and time of the whole event. So, and also, you know, even it goes down to the lawyer saying that in that statement, when they have that long attack on the Mail, which is astonishing, that Meghan, we know she lied.
It opens the door to a phase called discovery. Discovery is the part of a court case where both sides can request documents, records, communications, and other evidence that might relate to the claims being argued. Emails, messages, contracts, and official records can all potentially become relevant depending on the case. For critics of the Sussexes, the argument is simple. If a lawsuit were filed, it could lead to intense scrutiny of private details that have never been publicly examined in court. Lady Colin Campbell herself has publicly said she is not intimidated by legal threats. In interviews and videos, she has suggested that if legal action were ever brought against her, she would be prepared to defend her statements in court. Her message has essentially been, go ahead and sue. Tom Bower has also continued standing by his reporting. His book, Revenge: Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors sparked major headlines when it was released, and he has repeatedly said that his work is based on extensive research and sources. Some online commentators claim that investigations into details surrounding the Sussex family, including timelines, public records, and official documents, have already been examined by journalists. However, it's important to note that many of the more sensational claims circulating online have not been independently verified by official sources.
On Bower, where he doesn't go there. But he does go there as far as the fact that they wanted to keep the birth private and all the secrecy around that, and even the fact that...
Still, speculation continues to swirl. Supporters of the Sussexes argue that Harry and Meghan have been constant targets of misinformation, harassment, and conspiracy theories, which is why their legal team sometimes sends warnings or legal letters to media outlets and individuals who publish claims they consider defamatory. Critics, on the other hand, say those legal warnings are sometimes used as a strategy to discourage scrutiny or criticism. That tension between privacy, criticism, and legal pressure has been building for years. And if a major lawsuit were ever filed, it could push the conflict into an entirely new phase. Legal analysts point out that cases involving public figures can become extremely complex. Lawsuits can take years to resolve, involve mountains of documentation, and expose both sides to intense public examination. And that's why many observers say the situation could become explosive if it ever reached a courtroom. Because once a case enters the legal system, the narrative is no longer controlled by interviews, podcasts, or social media posts. It becomes a matter of evidence, documentation, and sworn testimony. For now, much of the conversation remains speculation and commentary, but the possibility of legal action has people watching closely. And if this conflict ever does move from media headlines into a courtroom, it could easily become one of the most dramatic royal legal battles in modern history. The situation becomes even more complicated when you look at another legal battle already unfolding around Meghan Markle, the defamation lawsuit brought by her half-sister, Samantha Markle. For years, the Sussex camp dismissed that case as baseless and unlikely to move forward. But the legal process has continued, and the case has reached a stage where Meghan could be required to provide testimony under oath as part of a deposition. In legal terms, a deposition is where attorneys ask questions and the witness must answer truthfully while the responses are officially recorded. Moments like that are significant because once someone is speaking under oath, the focus shifts entirely to verifiable facts and documented evidence, rather than public statements or interviews. And that brings us back to the figures now being mentioned in the conversation, Lady Colin Campbell and investigative author Tom Bower. Supporters of these commentators argue that they are not simply social media personalities or rumor accounts.
That Samantha only called herself Markle when Meghan was engaged to Harry, which Samantha says is a total lie. Interestingly, Samantha also says that Meghan's story about having a Ford Explorer where she could only get in through the boot was also untrue.
Lady Colin Campbell has written about the royal family for decades and has published several books on royal history and personalities. Tom Bower, meanwhile, is a longtime investigative writer whose biographies of public figures have often generated headlines and controversy. His book, Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, drew significant attention when it was released, with the Sussex camp strongly disputing many of its claims. Because of their reputations, some commentators believe that if a legal dispute ever reached a courtroom, both figures would rely heavily on documented sources and research to defend their statements. In recent interviews and discussions, Bower has said that journalists often examine publicly available records and timelines connected to major events. When reporters investigate topics like royal births, they typically look at things like hospital announcements, official statements, and other documentation that accompanies high-profile events. However, it's important to note that no credible public evidence has confirmed the more extreme claims circulating online about the Sussex children's births. Much of that discussion exists primarily in speculation across social media and commentary channels rather than verified reporting. Lady Colin Campbell has also hinted in interviews that she believes there are details surrounding royal events that the public may not fully understand, though she has not produced conclusive evidence supporting the rumors circulating online. The broader issue many analysts point out is that the royal family traditionally handles births in a very transparent and ceremonial way. Historically, royal births were announced with detailed medical confirmations and public statements about the doctors involved. For example, when Prince William and Catherine welcomed their children, the births took place at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, and official notices were posted publicly at Buckingham Palace. Those traditions were designed to avoid questions about the royal line of succession and to maintain public confidence in the process. When Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties and moved to the United States, many of those traditions were no longer followed in the same way, which may be one reason speculation has continued among certain commentators. Still, without official legal proceedings forcing the release of new documents, much of the debate remains interpretation, commentary, and speculation rather than established fact. And that's why legal experts say the real turning point would only come if a major defamation case actually reached court. Because once the legal process begins, both sides must rely on evidence, testimony, and documentation. and the courtroom becomes the place where competing claims are tested under oath. Another point that critics often raise involves how Harry and Meghan handled the public announcements surrounding the births of their children. Traditionally, royal births in the United Kingdom have followed a very public and structured process. The hospital is usually named, the doctors involved are identified, and official notices are placed outside Buckingham Palace confirming the details. The goal of that transparency has historically been to avoid speculation and to reassure the public about the royal line of succession. In the case of the Sussexes, however, the approach was different. When their son Archie was born in 2019, Harry and Meghan chose to keep several details private, including the exact location of the birth at first and the names of the medical staff involved.
Choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they want to hide their secrets. And I just love digging away to find out what they don't want us to know. I wrote 4 years ago a book about Prince Charles, and it was a story about how he had rehabilitated himself after Diana's death, and how Camilla also had to be rehabilitated. And it was a #1. It was a fascinating story. So when Meghan came along into the scene, I just thought, this is fascinating. How is this going to play? To tell the truth, I spoke to very few friends of Meghan because she put a fatwa on anyone talking to me who she could. So I sent off dozens and dozens of emails to her friends, and most of them didn't even reply. And obviously I spoke to her father, who loves her still very much, and said, in the end, whatever she is, she's still my daughter. You can't beat the real story. I mean, that's the excitement of writing these sort of books, that in the end, nothing beats the truth, the real fact.
Their daughter Lilibet was later born in California after the couple had moved to the United States and stepped back from royal duties, which meant the process no longer followed the traditional palace protocol. Supporters of the couple argue that the decision was simply about protecting their privacy, especially given the intense media attention surrounding the royal family. Critics, however, say that the lack of traditional details left room for speculation. Over the years, some commentators and online observers have pointed to photographs and public appearances during Meghan's pregnancy, suggesting that certain details looked unusual to them. A few medical professionals who spoke in media interviews have commented on things like posture, clothing, or the way pregnancy bumps can appear different depending on lighting, camera angles, or the type of outfit being worn. However, experts in obstetrics and maternity care frequently emphasize that pregnancy can look very different from person to person. The size and shape of a pregnancy bump can change depending on factors like clothing, body position, time of day, and even how the baby is positioned. Because of that, most medical professionals say it is impossible to draw conclusions about someone's pregnancy based solely on photographs or video clips. Another detail that has been discussed in commentary circles is the wording used in some official birth announcements. Certain commentators, including Lady Colin Campbell, have argued that phrasing in announcements can sometimes carry subtle meaning. However, language used in official statements often varies depending on the communication team preparing the announcement, and there is no confirmed evidence that wording alone indicates anything unusual about the births. Ultimately, much of the debate around these topics comes down to interpretation and speculation, rather than confirmed facts. Harry and Meghan have repeatedly said that their children were born in the normal course of events, and no official investigation or verified report has contradicted that. What this discussion does show, however, is how public curiosity around the royal family can quickly grow when traditional protocols change. When details are limited or handled differently from past royal events, it sometimes leads to questions and theories that continue circulating for years. Lady Colin Campbell believes the situation goes deeper than what the public has seen so far, and investigative author Tom Bower's reporting has added another layer to the debate. According to discussions circulating among royal commentators, Bower has said that journalists often attempt to verify major public events by checking public records and institutional confirmations, including hospitals and official statements.
She brings up the very interesting point that at the time when these rumours first started to come up and appear, that they were the realm of the conspiracy theorist, and that Lady C does not consider herself a conspiracy theorist, so she paid them no heed at all.
In commentary about the Sussex story, he has claimed that researchers looked into the two locations most often mentioned in connection with the births: Portland Hospital in London and Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California. However, it's important to note that no verified public evidence has confirmed the claim circulating online that something unusual occurred.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know.
Much of what is being discussed comes from commentators and speculation rather than confirmed documentation. Still, the topic has continued to attract attention because of moments that observers have revisited over the years. One example frequently mentioned by critics is the first public presentation of Archie in 2019, when Harry and Meghan introduced their newborn son during a carefully controlled media appearance at Windsor Castle.
And it needs to happen. They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country. All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
Unlike previous royal births, where photographers captured the parents outside the hospital, the Sussexes chose a private indoor introduction with a limited number of media outlets. Some commentators have also pointed to a small moment during a later interview that has circulated widely online. In that clip, Harry referred to how much the baby had changed in 2 weeks, while Meghan, standing beside him, responded, 2 days. The exchange was brief, and the conversation quickly moved on. Supporters of the couple say moments like that are simply normal slips in conversation, while critics argue they raise questions about the timeline. Regardless of interpretation, those small details have become part of the broader online discussion surrounding the Sussex family. Meanwhile, reports from insiders near the couple suggest that Prince Harry has grown increasingly frustrated with the constant speculation about his family. Commentators have described him as deeply protective of his children and angered by online narratives questioning their births or legitimacy. Because of that, there has been ongoing speculation that legal action could be taken against certain commentators, including Lady Colin Campbell or Tom Bower. But both figures have publicly indicated that they would not be intimidated by the threat of a lawsuit. Lady Colin Campbell has stated in interviews that she stands by her commentary and would defend it if challenged legally. Tom Bower has taken a similar stance, saying that his work relies on research, sources, and documentation gathered over years of investigation. Legal analysts point out that defamation lawsuits involving public figures are extremely complex. In order to succeed, the person bringing the claim must show that the statements made were false and damaging, and that they were published with a certain level of fault or disregard for the truth. If such a case were ever filed, it would likely involve detailed examination of documents, timelines, and testimony from multiple parties. That's why many observers say a courtroom could dramatically change the conversation. In media interviews or online commentary, people can debate theories endlessly. But in a legal setting, arguments are tested through evidence, sworn statements, and cross-examination. And that's the reason some people online have even encouraged the idea of a lawsuit, not because they want conflict, but because they believe a courtroom would finally settle years of speculation one way or another. For now, however, no such lawsuit has been filed, and the debate continues largely in the world of media commentary, books, and online discussions. But the irony many observers point out is this: the very legal action that critics say Harry might use to silence accusations could also be the thing that draws even more attention to the story than ever before. The tension around this debate also touches on a much bigger issue than celebrity gossip: the rules surrounding the British royal line of succession. For centuries, the monarchy has followed a principle that heirs to the throne must be born of the body of the royal parent. The phrase appears in historical legal language tied to succession laws and was originally meant to prevent disputes about legitimacy in the royal family. Today, those rules still form part of the constitutional framework that determines who can inherit the throne. Because of that, whenever public speculation emerges about royal births, some commentators argue that the topic becomes more than personal. They say it becomes a constitutional question. However, it's important to stress that no credible evidence has ever shown that Archie or Lilibet's births violated succession rules. Both children are officially recognized as members of the royal family and remain in the line of succession according to the current royal records. Still, commentators like Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower have argued that the continued speculation could be settled easily if more transparency were provided. Critics often suggest that official confirmation or documentation could end the conversation permanently. Supporters of Harry and Meghan strongly reject those demands. They argue that their children deserve privacy, especially after the couple stepped back from royal duties and moved to the United States. From that perspective, requests for medical records or DNA testing are seen as invasive and inappropriate, particularly when the children themselves are not public figures in the same way working royals are. Meanwhile, the royal family in Britain has maintained a consistent response. Buckingham Palace has repeatedly declined to comment on rumors surrounding the Sussex family, typically issuing the standard statement that the palace does not engage with speculation. That approach reflects a long-standing royal communication strategy. Avoid amplifying controversies by refusing to address them directly. Observers have also noticed the distance between the Sussex family and the rest of the royals in recent years. Since Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties in 2020, their children have grown up mostly in California and rarely appear publicly. That contrasts with the visibility of Prince William and Princess Catherine's children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, who frequently appear at royal events, public celebrations, and official photographs. Some royal analysts say the difference simply reflects their very different roles within the monarchy. William's children are direct heirs to the throne and are being gradually introduced to public life, while Harry's children live outside the United Kingdom and are not working members of the royal family. Still, the contrast has fueled ongoing discussion among royal watchers. At the center of the debate is a broader tension that has followed Harry and Meghan for years. Their public brand has often emphasized speaking openly, challenging royal traditions, and telling their own story, whether through interviews, documentaries, or Harry's memoir, Spare. Critics argue that if transparency is central to that message, then questions from journalists and commentators should not automatically be dismissed. Supporters respond that sharing personal experiences does not mean surrendering every aspect of private family life to public scrutiny. What makes the current moment so charged is that both sides feel strongly about the principle involved. For critics, the issue is accountability and public interest tied to the monarchy. For supporters, the issue is privacy, dignity, and protection of children who never chose public life. And as long as those two perspectives remain in conflict, the conversation surrounding Harry, Meghan, and their place in the royal story is likely to continue, regardless of whether any legal action ever takes place. As we reach the end of this story, one thing becomes clear. The debate surrounding Harry, Meghan, and their critics has grown far beyond a simple disagreement between public figures. On one side, you have a couple who once sat down with Oprah and spoke openly about honesty, transparency, and wanting their story to be heard. On the other side, you have commentators like Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower, who argue that asking questions about public figures, especially those connected to the royal family, is part of legitimate scrutiny. Now, with talk of possible legal action in the air, the conversation has moved into an even more serious space. If Prince Harry were to pursue a defamation lawsuit, the issue would no longer live only in interviews, books, or social media debates. It would move into the courtroom, where claims are tested through documents, testimony, and evidence. And that's why many legal analysts say such a move would be a major gamble for everyone involved. The British monarchy itself is built on centuries-old constitutional principles, including the rule that heirs must be born of the body. That language has historically been used to protect the legitimacy of the royal line of succession. Today, however, Archie and Lilibet are already officially recognized within the royal family and remain listed in the line of succession according to the current royal records. Still, commentators continue debating what transparency should look like in a modern royal context. At the same time, Buckingham Palace has maintained its traditional stance: no engagement with speculation. The palace's response has remained the same: brief, neutral, and designed to avoid fueling public controversy. Meanwhile, the contrast between the Sussex family and the rest of the royal household has been widely discussed. Prince William and Princess Catherine's children regularly appear at public events and in official photographs, while Harry and Meghan have largely kept Archie and Lilibet out of the public eye, raising them privately in California. Supporters say that decision is about protecting their children's privacy. Critics argue it leaves unanswered questions that continue to circulate. And that tension brings us back to the central issue: public image and narrative. Since stepping away from royal duties, Harry and Meghan have built a global brand around their story through interviews, documentaries, books, and media projects. Their supporters see them as a couple who chose independence and advocacy. Their critics say the narrative still relies heavily on royal intrigue and controversy. Either way, their reputation and their future projects are closely tied to how the public views that story. That's why some analysts believe the stakes are so high. Every new controversy affects public perception, media coverage, and ultimately the strength of their brand. For now, Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower have both said they are not backing down from their commentary, while Harry and Meghan's camp continues pushing back against what they describe as misinformation and speculation. The Samantha Markle case is still moving through the legal system, the palace remains silent, and the wider conversation around the Sussex family continues to evolve. So now the question shifts to you. Do you think Prince Harry will actually pursue legal action against critics like Lady Colin Campbell or Tom Bower? And if a case ever did reach court, do you believe it would clarify the story or make the controversy even bigger? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all, and the discussion is always interesting to follow. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, share the video with someone who follows royal news, and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss the next update. Because if this story continues the way it's been unfolding, the next chapter could arrive sooner than anyone expects.